Howdy folks, welcome back. And in this video, we're continuing our series about doing Linux user management via the command line. And in the previous video, of course, we looked at the configuration files that are common to all Linux distros. In this video, we want to look at how to create user accounts the Red Hat way. And when I say the Red Hat way, I'm talking about all members of the Red Hat family. I'm talking about Red Hat Enterprise, CentOS, Scientific Linux, Oracle Linux, Fedora. This procedure is going to work for all of those members of the Red Hat family. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, a video about creating user accounts on a Red Hat type machine is going to be short and sweet because with the Red Hat family, so many of the things that we would have to just configure ourselves on other Linux distros are set up as default settings. So we have the login.defs file in the etc directory, and we have the user add file in the etc default directory, which we looked at in the previous video. And we saw how in the Red Hat family, we have so many of those default settings already created for us in those two files. So that means that on a Red Hat style machine, in this case, we're using CentOS 7, all we really have to do to create a user account is do sudo user add, and think of a good name here for the user. Let's go with Lionel. Lionel is my orange and white tomcat who has been with me for about 11 and a half years. And just so you know, the usernames that I create are going to be names of my cats, okay? And fortunately, I have plenty of cats for plenty of examples. But anyway, we're just going to do user add Lionel, just like that. I'll enter my sudo password for myself. And that's all I need to do. And then after creating the user account, I need to create a password for Lionel. So I'll do sudo passwd Lionel. And I'll enter my sudo password. And that's a part that can be a bit tricky. You got to be sure when you first do this, enter your sudo password, okay? Sometimes it can get confusing. You'll enter a new password for Lionel, and when you really mean to be entering your own sudo password. But anyway, once we get past that, we can now enter the password for Lionel. And enter it again. And there we have it. Lionel has a new password. Now, here's another little trick. You probably don't want for Lionel to be using the password that you set for him all the time. So what you can do is go over here, look at the man page for passwd, and we can go on down, and we can see that we have a -e option there, which will expire that password, and that will force Lionel to change his password the first time he logs in. So let's go ahead and do that. And this -e option is an option that is only available to someone with root privileges. Okay, so his password is now expired. So let's go ahead now, and we will say that we are going to log in as Lionel. Well, first let me go ahead and log out here from my own account. And I will log in as Lionel. Okay, so we see now that that -E option did the trick for the passwd. So passwd -E will force the user to change his or her own password upon the first login. So let's go ahead and do this. Oops, it didn't work because I was supposed to enter the current password. So let's go ahead and try it again. Okay, so now we'll do it again. Now I can do the new password. Oh, and the password I entered is Turkey Lips, which with a capital T and a capital L. So this is one of the things here that we have, one of the safeguards that we have. It prevents the user from creating a password that consists of words that are in the dictionary. So let's try this again with something else. And this time I used words that are not in the dictionary and it worked. Okay. Now, if you are an administrator, if you have root privileges, you can override that safety precaution. Okay. It'll complain when you try to enter a dictionary word as a password, but it will let you do it. Okay. But if you are a normal unprivileged user, you absolutely have to follow this safety precaution, this safety feature, okay? You cannot override it. So anyway, that's it. And we can go ahead and open up the command line for Lionel just for fun. Here we go, Lionel on the CentOS-teaching hostname machine, okay? So that's all there is to actually creating a user account. So now let's go ahead here, log out from Lionel's account. We'll log back in with my own account. And by the way, if you're wondering why I'm using the KDE desktop here instead of the default GNOME 3 desktop, it is simply because I detest GNOME 3. But that's my own opinion. If you like it, I'm not going to complain. So anyway, the next thing I'm going to show you is how to override some of these default settings. So we can create another user account, and this time it's going to be Caitlin, who's my little calico kitty. But we can override some of these options. I mean, we can override some of these default settings. For example, we can do well, first let's look at the man page. We'll look at the man page for user add. And we can see what some of our option switches are. We can go down here. For example, we can do a -E, lowercase e, to set an expiration date for that account. And the date is going to be specified in 4 digits for the year, 2 digits for the month, 2 digits for the day, all separated by dashes. We can do a -F, like so, and that will set the number of days after a password expires until the account is disabled. Okay? So if we were to do a -F2, for example, then the user would have 2 days to change his or her password after the password expires. And we can have an uppercase G if we want to add a user to a particular secondary group. Like, for example, if we want to have a user have full sudo privileges, we can use that to add the user to the wheel group as we create the account. Or if we have like an accounting group or a marketing group or an engineering group or whatever group, that we want to add that user to. As we create the account, we can use the -G in all of those cases, okay? And a lot of other different option switches there as well. I'll leave it to you to look over them, okay? The one, however, that you never want to use, this one here, -P, which is supposedly to create a password as you create the account. However, I'm here to tell you this does not work, okay? Just don't use this -P option switch at all. Leave it alone, okay? Just make your password using the passwd utility. Just make it a separate step from user account creation, all right? So anyway, let's go ahead here and do this. Oh yeah, also here too, you can override some of the other default settings, like for example the shell. Right now the default is to use the bash shell, but if you have somebody wanting to use a different shell, for example the Z shell or the C shell, you can do that as long as they're installed on the system. Or for example, if you want to create user accounts that you don't want to log into the system, you just want them to log into, for example, the Samba account. If you're setting up a Samba server, a file server, then you can do the sbin no login shell. So a few different things you can do for that. All right. So anyway, let's go ahead back over here and let's do, well, first off, let's do this. Let's do sudo group add accounting. And now let's go ahead and create a user account for Caitlin. And we're going to add her to this accounting group. And we're also going to set an expiration date for her account, because we're just going to say that Caitlin is a contract employee. So she is going to leave the company at a specified time. So let's say that she's going to leave at 2017. And let's say she's going to leave at the end of October. And then we'll specify her username. Caitlin, by the way, is my little calico kitty. She's also been with me for 11.5 years. So now we can go ahead and do this. And there we have it. And we can verify that she's a member of the accounting group by using the groups command. And we can also verify that her account will expire at the end of October by doing sudo ch-l Caitlin. And there you have, the account expires October 31st, 2017. And again, that, as I said in the previous video, that account expiration is completely different from the password expiration. So you can see there that she has a string of 9s set for her password expiration, which means that her password never expires. Then we can also go into the home directory, and we can see that because of the default settings in the login.defs file, and we can go over here and take a look at that again. And we'll go down here, and we see that the UMask setting is 077. So that means that all permissions are taken away from the group and others. And we can see over here that only I have permissions to go into my home directory. Only Caitlin has permissions to go into her home directory. And only Lionel has permissions to go into his home directory. So that's one of the beautiful things about the Red Hat way of doing business, is because we have all these default settings already configured for us for the best security and for the best convenience. And it really makes it really a breeze then to create user accounts for Red Hat type machines. And in the next video, we're going to see that on the other non-Red Hat systems, it's a little bit more complex. But fortunately, they can be configured, but they just don't come configured with the default settings right out of the box. But anyway, also while we're at it, let's go ahead here and we'll also go up to here. And let's go ahead and change this password max days to 90. And we'll leave everything else the same. No, actually we won't. Let's go ahead and change this pass min days to 2. And we'll leave everything else the same. Okay, we could change that one too if we wanted to, but 7 days is a good warning period for making sure that the user has plenty of time to change his or her password before it expires. This setting here, if you remember from the previous video, password min length, it is completely meaningless here in the login.defs because it is not going to have any effect. It's overridden by the PAM, and it's set for 5 days, but PAM, which by the way stands for Pluggable Authentication Module, is already set for 8 days. So let's go ahead and save that. And by the way, I forgot to assign Caitlin a password, so let's go ahead and do that. So now let's go ahead here and create another user account. And this time we'll do Maggie, who's my little black and white tuxedo kitty, who's been with me for over 10 years. And now let's go ahead here and see with the CH age what we have for Maggie. And so now we see that Maggie's password will expire on April 15th of 2017 because I set that password expiration age, or that maximum age, in the login.defs to 90 days. And she will now have to go 2 days. Once she changes her password, she will have to go 2 days before she's able to change it again. And there we have the 90 days between password changes. And she will get 7 days warning before the password expires. But we still have password inactive set to never. An account expires set to never. So in other words, once the password expires, she can go indefinitely before changing it again, and her account will not get locked out. So let's go ahead and create another account then. And we'll do the -F this time. And we'll set that to 3 days. And we'll do Frank, who is my Flame Point Siamese kitty. And we see this time that now, if Frank does not change his password by April 18th after it expires, then his account will be locked out. And the only way that he'll be able to get back in is to have an administrator reset the account for him. And then if we want to, we can do user add -s bin ZSH Cleopatra, for example, who is my gray and white tabby kitty. And we can also combine these options. We don't have to just do one option at a time. We can do a -G accounting, for example. dash F2 or 3, like we did with Frank, dash E 2017 1031. So here we have a whole bunch of option switches all at the same time. We're setting her to use the Z shell by default. We're adding her to the accounting group. We are making it so that she has to change her password prior to 3 days after the password expires. And we're expiring her account at the end of October. So we're doing all this at once. So we don't have to do just one option switch at a time. And I'm actually not going to create her account because I've got plenty already. And then the other default settings that we have are in that etc default file. We can change that by hand if we want to by editing it, but we also can use user add with an uppercase D. We do it like that, and it'll just dump the contents of that etc default user add file to the screen. And we can change the default settings, like we can do a dash E, like so. We can do a dash S, like so. We can also put a dash F in there. And we can see that we've changed these default settings. So now, when we create a user account the next time, the expiration date of that account will be at the end of October. The user will be using the Z shell instead of the bash shell. And the user will have 2 days to change his or her password after the password expires. So now let's go ahead and put this to the test. And so now you see that we have all of these settings. We have password last changed. Actually, I haven't changed the password. I haven't assigned her password. Let's do that. So we've assigned her a password. The password expires April 15th. She will have to change her password by April 17th after it expires. Her account expires October 31st. She has to wait 2 days before being able to change her password. Password's good for no more than 90 days, and she'll get a 7-day warning before the password expires. So that's pretty much it then for creating user accounts the Red Hat way. So I've shown you how to create the basic account, how to assign a password, how to force a user to change the password upon first login, and I've shown you how to change the default settings. And the one thing I will left to show you will be to go into default or etc default directory. And let's go ahead and put this file back the way it was. So we'll just go ahead and put this back the way it was. And we'll get rid of this. And we'll put this back to bash. And then we can save the file. Hopefully it'll let me do it. There we go. So that's all there is to it. So that's the Red Hat way, the easy way. And in the next video, I will show you how to do it for all other Linux distros. Okay, so anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to like and subscribe. Tell your friends about me. Share it out. And we will see you the next time.